Welcome to Why, a podcast brought to you by United Way of the Big Bend. I'm Bernice Cox. You rarely find someone who can actually blend politics and ministry, but we have the perfect guest today that can share with you how he does that. Please welcome Darrick McGhee. We're here today with Darrick McGhee. Darrick is the CEO of Johnson & Blanton, and he is the pastor of Bible-Based Church. Darrick, welcome. We're so happy that you're joining us today.
I'm excited to be here.
So there's so much that you do that we're not going to be able to get to all of that today. It would take us a few days to really unpack that. But what I really want to ask you about, as we look at Johnson & Blanton, that's a legislative affairs firm or legislative firm, government relations. Share with us your why about getting into the political arena and how that happened.
Absolutely. So it was accidental, in all honesty. I was one who did not like politics. I thought every politician was corrupt. My grandfather always had this thing where either you will complain about the problem or be a part of the solution. And I really got challenged by those words. And so I got a degree in political science, really with the intent to go to law school. And my wife was a semester behind me in undergraduate. And so I said, I'll just get a job until you graduate. My intent was to propose and we get married. I took a little OPS non-benefit job for a state agency, and they put me in the legislative shop. And I had a lot of just time in the office. I started reading statutes and people's bios, and the nerd of me just got interested in it. Really with no intention, in all honesty, Bernice, have been doing this. And then 2 years will go by, my wife finished her master's, and I said, well, let's wait 2 more years just to kind of see if you can get you a good job with that degree, with your master's. And my intent was, we're going to move to Atlanta. So I was just working jobs, really just kind of pay bills. And in 2005 came, and I said, okay, it's time to leave. And she said, we can't leave. And I said, well, give me one reason why we can't leave. And she said, we're pregnant. And I was like, well, that's a good reason. But with that became the seriousness of me really looking at, can I make a career out of this? And I had begun to meet a few legislators where I really felt like they all weren't corrupt. But I'd also really started learning the process, really felt like I could be a contributor to it all. I never foresaw doing the amount of years I've done. I really just wanted to do it really more out of fun, out of excitement. But my grandfather's words at the outset was a challenge of me. Complain about the problem, be a part of the solution. And so I wanted to be a person who was in there helping with good public policy. And I did 13 and a half years in government and then went private sector in 2014. And so still doing the same work, just doing now for different clients in that regard. But I love politics.
What do you enjoy about it? Share with us what you enjoy about that.
So I enjoy, funny and interesting, I love the banter back and forth. I love the debate. I've never been one that's been a proponent of supermajority either way. I feel like with that comes, it takes away from the banter and the debate that takes place. But I'm a believer of public policy. I believe policy generates appropriations where other people argue the other way around. And so for me, watching an idea develop into legislation and into a bill and so on and so forth, to me is very, very fun and exciting. And then when I was in government, I had the benefit of seeing that idea become law and the impact it had on people's lives. And so for me, it is in that regard. And I still naively maybe believe that people enter into politics with the genuine desire to help people out. And so I've been fortunate to do this for 22 years and still thoroughly enjoy it. And so just the love of politics. But the banter is always fun. It really, really is.
I would agree. I mean, as you know, I worked in the Capitol for years. When I say worked in the Capitol, walked those halls of the Capitol for years. And one of the things I loved about it is I loved meeting the new people because you got new legislators frequently, their team, the staff that you got to work with. And then I loved the fact that the policy, I enjoyed the policy too. And I always really enjoyed when I went into a legislator's office and we could go into that policy discussion, not just the top layer, but delve into a few layers.
I love all that.
Because in the debate, I find the debate very interesting, where an exchange of different opinions can be respected, valued, and then you can get to a really good agreement. And I can hear from you that that's also something that really you love.
I love it.
And how do you think that political experience has shaped your life personally?
Yeah, so for me, I've been really fortunate. I've been bivocational, meaning being in Christian ministry and working since college. I entered into ministry when I was a college student, and then my first job out of college, I was already in ministry, and so I've balanced both. But as a result, it's allowed me to really bring a lot of perspective to conversations in the community as well as in the church context. I think from the political standpoint, it's allowing me to have a greater depth of the needs of people, the struggle of what's going on, and also being able, when I meet with legislators and debate on policy, ask the question of have you thought about the impact it'll have on the constituency? And to me, that's very important. A lot of times when everything happens in Tallahassee as far as bills getting passed, budgets being approved, but you have to go back to a district of people who may never come to Tallahassee, but they're impacted by Tallahassee's decisions. And I remember being on the other end of that as just a young man in a single-parent household where decisions were being made that had impact on us.
Right.
And no one ever asked us our opinion and the impact. We just felt it. And so for me with politics, it's really trying to be a voice, sometimes crying in the wilderness, but also trying to make sure that I bring that knowledge and intellect back to people who may be novices to the process and explaining to them what's taking place and what the impact is. And then also, Bernice, trying to really encourage people to remember that all politics is still local. And so make sure your voice is heard, whether it's writing, whether it's emailing, whether it's appearing at city, county, legislative committee meetings in that regard. And so I try to really be that advocate as well. It's fun. It's also challenging because there are people who really believe that politicians could care less about them and that their voice doesn't matter. And that's a challenge for me because at one point I was that person, but on the other end, I know that the silent voices will never be heard anyway. And so you got to get people really encouraged in that regard. And I've been fortunate to be in rooms with governors and key legislators who are making critical decisions and been able to be a voice to raise just that one question, have everybody at least pause and think, is this really going to have the impact we want it to have? And I do that because I'm trying to remember. My years in government made me remember that there is somebody on the other end of these decisions that are impacted. When you go private sector, sometimes you forget that. When you're in government, you know there is a population that will benefit good and or bad by a decision. So be careful about what you're doing and remind the room to be careful as well.
Something I've always appreciated about you, and there's many things, but something I've really always appreciated about you is you don't mind taking on the elephant in the room or talking about the elephant in the room, but the way you do it is just a beautiful thing to watch. I've watched you over the years do that, but the way you do that, and it's just what you just said, it's bringing that voice to others, and it's typically, that's why there's the elephant in the room, because where's the impact going to be? You mentioned, and we talked about you being a pastor of a Bible-based church. Share with us how you got into the ministry early in your life. Why?
Yeah. So my grandfather, who I aforementioned, when I was a young boy, I was very rambunctious, and he would say bad. He said when I was young that I was going to be in ministry. He said somebody as bad as you has to either end up being a preacher or a lawyer. I was the youngest grandson for a long period of time, and so I had to do things to get the attention because I was the youngest. And I laughed it off, and then I really started feeling, when I was in college again, I was going to go to law school, and then I started waning from that desire of law school. And the reason why was my desire to go to law school wasn't for a love of the law. When I was in high school, it was an O.J. Simpson trial, and I grew up in Los Angeles, so we were seeing it on every news channel. And I became very enamored by Johnny Cochran, right? The suits, the vocabulary. That's really what I was in love with. I didn't care about the law. And so entering into about the summer of my junior year of college, I started feeling this pull at my heart. And someone I knew said, I believe God's calling you in the ministry. And to be very frank, I was not happy about it because I really didn't see a model of a college minister. Nor did I want to be that college minister. I want to enjoy my college experience. And so I really fought it for a long period of time and eventually submitted to it, started going through training, licensing, ordaining, things of that nature. And I served under a local pastor here for many years. That's actually where I met my wife. And then in 2010, we planted a church. And we've been in existence for 12 years, of ministry in that regard. But I grew up in a Christian home. My mom raised two of us by herself with the help of my grandparents, but we struggled. I mean, struggled. Government assistance. My mom worked a lot of hours and still barely made ends meet. We were that Alice population. I grew up in Peoria, Illinois. I was raised in Illinois, but I got raised in Los Angeles. And so in both of those locations, we struggled greatly. My mom would negotiate with the landlord to give leniency where she could pay half the rent at the beginning of the month, other half in the middle of the month. And I hated watching that. I hated going to the grocery store, not knowing if we have enough money to pay, get the groceries we needed.
I've been there. I
Yeah,
mean, you and I have talked about that. It's not a great
it's
place
not
to
at
be.
all. It's not at all. But my mom always pushed my brother and I. I'm the youngest of two boys. That the way out of the neighborhood was going to be our academics. So we were very academically astute, and I was very active in school other than in grades as well. But I remember saying to my mom and to my brother, and really to myself a lot in the mirror, if I ever get to a position where I'm living comfortable, I'm going to involve myself in things where I'm able to help other people out because I understand the plight. And it's also an embarrassment that goes with it because you're always worried about classmates finding out that you're struggling. I was on free and reduced lunch, and I was always ashamed to get in line and give the lunch ticket because I didn't want my friends to know. And so went to college. I'm a first generation college attendee. First one of my dad's family to ever go to college and graduate from college. And so I didn't have the blueprint like that. Graduated, started working. And I'd always heard about United Way. But I always knew it as the movers and shakers are United Way's board. And I didn't think I ever think I was a mover or a shaker. And then Ron Sachs one day called me and said, hey, man, I want to put your name in. I was like, no, I'm not interested. And he was persistent. And Katrina Rowe was president and CEO at the time, and I have familial connections have familial relations with her. And so I entertained it. But really what compelled me to really delve into United Way was when we started going through the rebranding and really start taking on a keener look at poverty. And for me, that's really became my why because I was the population that we were trying to have an impact of. And so my childhood life story and the struggle came to the forefront again. And at this point, I'm in a different position, different context, but I have a greater understanding of what families are dealing with. And so the more we went through the rebranding, the more we went through the shifting, as I will call it, the more excited I became because we began to realize how great the need was. And then to add to that, I pastor a lot of people that I grew up being as far as struggle, single parents, things of that nature, and watching them try to just live. And so for me, being in the middle of the pastoral as well as being on the board was exciting because I felt like in both worlds there was a commitment to that. And it's necessary. And then I coined this quote that I give all the time is, you can't unknow once you know. Once I started seeing the numbers of Leon County and the surrounding areas, what that looked like, that knowledge and which was very concerning, but exciting, and not in an insulting way, but exciting that we can actually play a role in helping this.
And impact that. You were talking about the numbers because 54% of our neighbors either here in Leon County, the state's capital of Florida, either live in poverty or at the edge of poverty in that Alice population. Working to make ends meet, struggling to make ends meet. You know, I've been in both poverty and I've been in the Alice population. And your heart is for service. I mean, it really is. And your heart, you've been all in with United Way of the Big Bend. You became are the past chairman of the board of directors. And why all in on this organization? Because I know you're pulled and asked in many areas to serve in leadership and to serve on boards. Why again is the United Way that significant to you?
And that's critical, and I shared this with you in a previous conversation. So when COVID hit, I really started doing an assessment of my life and all that I was involved in. And I was involved in a lot of things, which I'm very proud of. And so I started, as my term expired on boards, I didn't seek reappointment. I would make recommendations for people they ought to really consider. United Way was never on that list. I'm all in, and that was very, very, very clear to my household. But here is why. Number one, I love you, and I mean that with all sincerity, and I love serving with you, and I love my colleagues. But also, as I aforementioned, just the focus on combating poverty to me is very, very important. I watched my mom really do the best she could, and she really, really did. And it's hard raising two boys in a gang-infested neighborhood. I watched her sacrifice. I mean, to the point, Bernice, my mom some nights would not eat so that my brother and we were growing boys. But I felt an obligation. I feel an obligation to make sure that the programs that are designed to do something to help can get that support. And then shame on me to have lived and survived the struggle I lived and survived, and be very blessed and fortunate to be living the way I'm living now and not want to give back. And I genuinely know that the United Way is committed to this work. I genuinely know that the employees here and the board And so my association is because I feel like I'm rubbing shoulders with individuals who genuinely want to do what's right and impact lives. And then lastly, I'll say on that is it's also a great joy to be with individuals of different races and socioeconomic status, all committed to the same work as well. And so that's important. And my mom and dad, who now live in Tallahassee, they're residents here. One of the joys, one of my goals was to be able to be somewhere in a financial state where I can help take care of my parents, or at least help. And I've been very blessed to do that. But when I'm around my mom and we just kind of reminisce, I get infused by where we've come and where life is now. But I see every day my mom and somebody else who's trying to take care of their kids. Right. And there are people who are doing the best they can, and they still just need that extra.
Just the extra, working as hard as they can. They just need that extra lift.
Correct.
You know, you and I have had a chance to have many conversations over the years. One of the most, I just love this when I see this. If you talk about your family, you talk about your mother, you talk about your grandfather, and there's others, but when you talk about your wife and you talk about your son and daughter, there you go. You just light up. And I know how much your family means to you, and you wear it. Absolutely. And you wear it very well. Let's have a little fun now.
Okay.
Let's move into a little fun. What's your favorite food?
Favorite food would be, shamingly, fried chicken.
Okay, I love that. That's what I grew up on that.
Fried chicken.
I think my mother fried about everything. She could even fry liver with the crust.
Oh wow, I've never had fried liver.
Can you imagine that? So when I say I like liver, what I'm really saying is I like the crust that my mother created on liver. It was really interesting.
I've had fried liver, but I only like mine with gravy. It had to be smothered in gravy. So I must be honest about that.
So you have that too. Somehow that's how they got us to eat it. I think.
Exactly.
If you couldn't live in Tallahassee, Florida, where would you like to live?
Man, that's awesome. So, it would more likely be Jamaica.
Okay.
My wife and I went there, and man, we loved it.
You loved it?
We absolutely loved it.
Okay.
It was awesome.
So the other thing I know about you, a little bit, is you're into sports, and I've seen that passion as well. Favorite football team?
Favorite football team. I'm a big Raiders fan. They broke my heart when they left Los Angeles and moved to the Vegas. So I've been boycotting them.
I bet they did.
Watching a little bit of Rams, Los Angeles Rams. I'm all about all Los Angeles teams, but I'm a diehard Raiders fan.
If I say favorite college team, do I get you in trouble? Do you want me to back off on that?
No.
Okay.
No.
Favorite college football team?
Football, USC Trojans.
Oh, okay.
All the way. And then my FAMU Rattlers.
I was going to say, you better. If
Yeah.
you didn't say it, I was going to say it for you.
My FAMU Rattlers. Nothing like some FAMU football.
There.
Yeah.
Just one more.
Okay.
As we look at sports, what is your favorite sport? Other than I'm going to say, I think it's football, but
it actually is basketball. I'm a big Los Angeles Lakers fan.
Okie doke.
I believe Magic Johnson is the greatest of all time.
Okay.
So I grew up a Lakers fan,
Okay.
and even though they're struggling in this season, I'm a huge Lakers fan.
So, and I would say Michael Jordan. We're a Bulls fan. So I would say my husband's from Chicago. So maybe you and my husband can have some conversations about that. That would be a lot of fun.
I'm a big Magic Johnson fan.
Darrick, always wonderful to have a chance to talk with you, and for people that are listening and watching today to know more about you and just another peek into Darrick McGhee. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.